The news surrounding the Rings of Power has yet to die down because showrunners make dumb statements, rumors are swirling around the internet, and now since it's been 2 weeks since the finale, the media is starting to question why Amazon has been so quiet about the viewership, especially since you'd think they would be jumping up and down, happy to shove the success in critics' faces. I have a bunch of things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So let's start with this Business Insider article. It says Amazon has been suspiciously quiet about the Rings of Power viewership in the 2 weeks since the first season concluded. Now, this is something I have talked about many times at this point. Amazon has been very quiet on the viewership, on any kind of numbers surrounding this series. And yes, I understand they wouldn't want to, release numbers and then have people be able to refute them very easily. But at the same time, you would think they would want to shove numbers in people's faces. There are a lot of critics of this series. There are a lot of people who did not enjoy it. I mean, if you look at the user scores on Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at a 39%. You would think that they would want to prove us wrong and say, wow, even though you didn't like the show, a lot of other people did, and the viewership for it was crazy. But they haven't done that. They have released two very vague numbers, and that was at the beginning of the series. They had said that 25 million households watched the first 2 episodes because they released on the same day. And then in a interview a couple of weeks ago, they said over 100 million households have watched the Rings of Power, but that was only like 6 episodes in. And of course, they have provided zero evidence for either of these claims. So something was suspiciously absent from Amazon's quarterly earnings release Thursday: any new viewership numbers on its prestige Lord of the Rings series, The Rings of Power. This is crazy because this is the type of series you need to do well, and you also want to put these in quarterly earnings releases because you have spent $1 billion between acquisitions, putting money into set pieces, paying actors and writers and producers, all of these different things. The show overall so far has cost over $1 billion, and you would think that they would have to put Rings of Power in this earnings release, and they didn't, which is very bad news, at least from a consumer standpoint. If they're too afraid to even put it in a quarterly earnings release, that is not good news. So it says it's been nearly 2 weeks since the first season of the show, which cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make, concluded on October 14th. Amazon has yet to release any viewership numbers on the finale, and the earnings release published Thursday repeated a vague stat that the company first teased more than 3 weeks prior. I said at the beginning of the show's release, when they gave us that 25 million number, I said that I thought that that number was fake. I thought they just made it up. They just said that because, of course, House of the Dragon had already released a couple of episodes at that point, and they were releasing weekly numbers, and I felt like Amazon just kind of wanted to directly compete with HBO with House of the Dragon, and they wanted to one-up them, so they released that stat, and then they couldn't back it up. I'm sure by now they could back it up. I'm sure that they have reached maybe 50 million viewers or something, at least, throughout the series, you would hope. But they haven't really told us at all. It says on October 4th, Amazon studio boss said in a splashy Variety cover story that the show was cresting towards 100 million customers having watched it. The show was only mentioned one time in Amazon's quarterly report on October 27th, reiterating that the show was closing in on 100 million viewers to date. So from October 4th to October 27th, they still gave the same numbers, that it was getting close to 100 million customers having watched it and closing in on 100 million viewers to date. So they haven't even still hit 100 million viewers in almost a full month. That is not good. It says, questions of the series' staying power. The growing silence on Amazon's part begs the question as to whether the company saw a drop-off of viewers after the 2-episode premiere. I would put money on the fact that they did. People were not impressed with the show from beginning to end. You could tell what was going to happen. They tried to give us all these twists and turns, yet they were way too obvious in the show. I do think that visually it was very pretty. I thought that some of the music was also very pretty and set the scene very well, but everything else was just kind of a flop in my opinion. It says, though, Amazon said that 25 million viewers worldwide watched the 2-episode premiere in its first day. A Hollywood Reporter feature on creators J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay later noted that 12.6 million viewers watched the premiere in the U.S. in the first 4 days. Weekly Nielsen streaming figures based on minutes viewed on connected TVs have given a decent idea of the show's viewership in the meantime. So it talks about how Amazon said The Rings of Power in its first 2 months has driven more Prime signups globally than any other Amazon original, but audience reactions were harsh, with the show receiving a 39% Rotten Tomatoes audience score. Amazon has contested that the show was review bombed, in which people purposefully try to lower a movie or show's user ratings, usually for racist or sexist reasons. Indeed, though, fans who were racist criticized the fact that black actors were playing some characters, but it's impossible to know how widespread the review bombing was. Just by mentioning, oh, we don't know how widespread it was, they are for all intents and purposes using it as a shield. This is a great example of what is wrong with legacy media, but I still wanted to reference this article since, of course, it shows that media is starting to question why Amazon is being so suspiciously quiet, but this article still isn't great for the obvious reasons. It also points out House of the Dragon versus The Rings of Power, talking about how the difference in interest in both series was also reflected in social media conversation. The House of the Dragon hashtag on TikTok has over 7 billion views, while The Rings of Power has nearly 800 million. It could be because The Rings of Power struggled to attract young viewers that drive online engagement. According to Nielsen data released earlier this month, 71% of its audience was 35 years or older. Now, it makes sense a giant portion of the audience would be Gen X and Millennial because of how popular the books and also movies are, but to get the number something like House of the Dragon has, you need to entice younger audiences into watching it as well, and I think they were banking on the pretty CGI and good music to draw those people in, but the story and pacing was abysmal, and I, a massive lover of Tolkien, didn't even want to watch the show after a few episodes because of how mediocre it was. As you can see, though, the media is already starting to question what's up with the Rings of Power and why Amazon hasn't released any numbers. I do think we are going to see an uptick in articles like this as time goes on, and then the conversation around Rings of Power will die off. At this point, I don't think Amazon is going to release any solid numbers. I think they're kind of afraid to, and they haven't met the numbers that they were expecting, or even the numbers their direct competition House of the Dragon reached, and I think that they are pretty disappointed, and they're also maybe a bit embarrassed. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.